And we're live. Good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you may be, and welcome to another scene in Mage from the Ashes, Living World of Darkness. Should have been the other way around, but anyhow. The scene is set in the Chantry, where we find one of the Magelings, one of the prodigies of this little ensemble of Magelings, trying to work towards a goal set to her by a senior member of the Hermetic Chantry. And it is here that we begin our scene.
Yeah, Ava has been dropped off by Grace to quite possibly the portal room because, yeah, she used to sleep there. Even though it's a lot colder there now. Um,
And there's potentially snow on the ground, but yeah.
yeah. I don't think Grace would have done that. I think she would have brought her to her bedroom. 'Cause she does actually have one. And Ava will go in, feeling kind of weird. She can't really place why she's feeling like this. But she sits on her bed for a little bit and then finally decides that this is the best time to try and do a thing. um, so she'll wander over to her desk, and like in the middle of the desk, like almost as if it's placed there by design, is the manuscript that she received.
For visual reference, I'll both show and describe the manuscript. If you just give me a second.
Take your time.
Okay. The manuscript looks sort of like this. Uh, it's about 30 by 75 centimeters. It looks legitimately very old. It's written on parchment, on some type of leather, as far as you can tell. And even though you can make out some of the letters, some look Latin, some look Greek, some look Arabic. There's no perceivable way about how you would go this to how you would go deciphering this without the use of your abilities, so to speak.
Yeah, she'll carefully pick up the parchment and she'll actually walk over to her bed and sits down. Actually smells the paper, smells the parchment, like specific smell that it has, which is probably old. Um,
She's gonna start maybe giving a small cough because there's a lot of dust in an old parchment, and you shouldn't do that.
yeah. Well, oops. She does it anyway. And yeah, she as she coughs, she kind of lets her hands glide over the letters, glide over the parchment, feel the dried up ink on it. Mm, and yeah, finally goes to lay down on the bed and starts holding it up to her face so she can study the letters and kind of lets the letters kind of sink into her mind's eye. Almost starts to imagine that they're lighting up, which they don't, but it's just in her mind as her opiated mind at this point, I might add. Mm,
Okay, is she sitting on the bed or on her desk or
bed.
bed?
And yeah, she just keeps on letting them sink into her mind, letting them become part of her, just the letters, even though she doesn't really understand it. And from time to time, yeah, she does again, like let her hands kind of glide over the parchment, and she even at some point kind of touches the parchment just with the tip of her tongue, just in a corner. Um, and
You're legitimately daring me to make you roll stamina because,
I mean, that's fine if you want to.
nah, I'm not giving you debilitating infections because you licked something that's hundreds of years old.
I mean,
But in real life, kids, remember, don't lick parchments.
don't lick anything that you don't know. Life lessons in Living World of Darkness. Don't lick anything you do not know. Oh boy.
Anyhow, getting back on track.
I think my sense of humor just woke up. um, yeah. And when she finally, after like hours of activating her magic in this fashion, kind of letting the parchment almost come to life in her mind, she'll start falling asleep.
If Ava feels her eyes slowly closing, and she gently lies down on her bed and falls asleep. After what you could only assume were a couple of minutes, her slumbers interrupted by a strong pain in the chest. And you feel dragged, like something grabbing you around your chest, around your heart to be specific, and pulling you out, like off of the bed, and to a certain extent out of the room.
I don't hear you anymore. Hello? No, I don't hear you.
And
I don't know if you can hear me, but oh wait, sweetie, I can't hear you. Technical difficulties. I can't hear you. And we have another George. Hello?
about that,
Oh, there you are.
technical difficulties.
Sorta, kinda, yeah. So I lost you after a certain extent, then you went blank.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Ah, there you are. Mm,
Works. It's made up of syllables.
You're really blinking in and out.
Still hear me? Hello?
It's
Yeah, where was I? Okay.
um something with syllables. That's about the thing that I could make up.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically you see the skyline of New York. You start flying through your window in a very Peter Pan style. And you see the skyline of New York. But instead of seeing it as normal, you see it like made out of written papers. You see words written on the walls, syllables around narrow street corners. And then they all start to fade. They fade, and you find yourself flying above a very different city, an unknown city, an old city. At night, you feel your body falling towards a specific point, and you find yourself barely floating above ground in a very strange alleyway. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you find yourself in this alleyway,
Oh.
except it's dark and there are not that many people around.
Could Ava like determine what or where this is or what time frame this is?
Intelligence academics.
Check. Let me see.
Difficulty 7.
No. Shit.
Downtown Manhattan last week.
Yeah, no.
Uh, yeah, you have no idea where you are. You have no idea when you are. But after about a couple of seconds, there's something that catches your eye. From a window of one of the houses, you see a light flickering.
Yeah. I guess she'll try and go towards that light.
As you go to the light, you end up at an old house. As you look into the window, you see someone dressed in a very thick robe above what looks like placed on top of what looks like linen or silk dress. The character is very thin. Their hands are very delicate. They're covered. They sit at a desk, and they're surrounded by papers. They frantically write something using a very large peacock feather, and they continue to write nervously. There's a feeling of panic that you get from this person. There's a feeling of urgency, feeling of dread, a feeling of someone that wants to leave something behind before they have to go in a rush. As you look into the window, you feel yourself drawn to this particular person. You feel a force compelling you to fly inside the house, like float inside the house, because you're not technically flying. You feel yourself closing your eyes for a moment. And as you open them back, you find yourself sitting at that desk, frantically writing with a quill in your hands. You've got papers in front of you in a language you don't really understand. There's only a single thought in your mind that you need to write. You need to write quick. For a second, you stop. Your eyes are tired. Your hand is tired. You feel weak. You feel tired. You feel your breath gets quicker. The urgency becomes even more present. And as you lift your eyes from the paper just to give them a rest, your eyes fall upon a mirror. And from that mirror, you see this face staring back at you.
Huh.
Out of character, same person.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So, what do you do?
Um, I mean, definitely looks surprised at that. And like I think for a moment her hand will kind of shoot up and touch her face to see if like, yeah, this is her.
The only thing you feel the silk of the dress. You feel the heavy woolen shawl, whatever you want to call it, shawl, hood, whatever, overcoat on your shoulders. Probably the only thing that feels out of place is you feel your hair being long and touching like the back of your neck and your collarbone. But
Yeah.
you feel very like yourself. The face that stares back at you from the mirror is strangely familiar. You recognize yourself in the mirror.
Mm-hmm. Um, she is going to like look around to see if there's anything that can give her like a name or a more like because she couldn't really understand what time or what place she was in. So give her like a more of an idea of where and when she is. She won't actually leave the room because that urge to write is still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then.
As you look, you cast your eyes upon the papers. The weird letters, the Greek letters that you see in front of you, combined with some other symbols, start shifting. Start. There's something at the back of your mind that seems familiar, and even though you cannot tell what you're writing about, and your hand starts writing on its own without you having any control of it. As you cast your eyes on one of the papers that sit there, you manage to see a date. You see the 12th of September. 5,000. Give me a second because I need to do the math. To pick up a calculator. So you see the 12th of September, 7,700. 6,740. At the first glance, this state doesn't make any sense.
No. So yeah, she'll continue to write. As part of her mind is, yeah, like looking for a name besides her own. Like, pretty damn sure this is not her, but it looks like her. So she's trying to see like if there's like a letter or something that looks like it has a similar handwriting, like if there's a name underneath it that she can kind of like see or not. Like if she can't see it or if she doesn't recognize the letters, then that's perfectly fine as well. But she's looking around to like puzzle things together. Like the date is a good puzzle piece, but she needs more to understand what she's dealing with or where she's dealing with.
You get no worthy information.
Figured.
Your hand is still writing and still writing and still writing, and sometimes you catch a word. You catch star, you catch sky, catch moon, catch danger, you catch death, you catch love, you catch mother. And even though they look connected, they might have make a bit of like a few connections in your head.
Yeah.
There's
She,
nothing. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. No. She's like trying to memorize where she saw these words on the paper. Um, kind of like again, kind of letting them light up in her mind, so that, oh, this word I recognized. It looked like this, and it meant that. So she's trying to memorize that as well as she can.
Um, there's a knock on the door. A very loud knock. There's the clinking of metal from behind that door. And you just hear a loud voice, a deep, manly voice yelling, "Open up! Open up! In the name of the Emperor, open up!"
Oh boy. I'm pretty sure that's not good news.
And you stop writing at that time. Like your hand stops, like drops the quill.
Yeah. Um, Ava kind of lets herself, if she can, that is, kind of fall back, so that basically lets um the feeling of what she has to do take over. You know,
Mm-hmm.
going intuitive more than like directing this individual that looks like her.
You feel that it would be a good idea to open that damn door because whoever's behind that
Mhm.
door sounds really serious.
And yeah, she'll stand up and yeah, go to the door and open it ever so slightly.
Behind the door, there is this man. He looks like a soldier, from what I can tell.
Mhm.
His armor clinks as he moves his hand. You see, he carries a small shield and a sword around his waist. And he looks at you with all the hatred in the world, but there's something in him. Behind that manly look, that tough guy look, there's a hint of fear in his voice. There's a hint of fear in his eyes. He even, as you open the door, he even takes a step or two back. This is a huge man. This is like an old school soldier. This is a guy that could legitimately kill you with one slap. And he yells at you. You have been found to be a witch. You are to be trialed and burned by the will of the Emperor and his guard.
Oh boy, that does not sound good. I think, yeah, Ava's eyes widen. She's like, I'm not a witch.
He looks at you surprised. And he pulls out the parchment from like a pouch he has. He looks at the parchment, looks at you, looks around. This can't be true. You are a witch. You will die.
I'm not?
Prove it. As
What?
his hand puts, one of his hands rests on his sword, and with the other hand he puts the parchment back into his pouch.
How can I prove that I'm not? What evidence do you have?
Guards have seen what you write. We've seen your papers, we've seen your drawings. We know that you're a witch. You wish harm upon the good people of Constantinople.
Filing that bit of information away. But yeah, Ava shakes her head. I would not mean harm on anyone. What drawings? What writings?
He draws his sword. There's this particular thing, sound of a drawing sword.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty short. It's a pretty short sword. And he points at the papers behind you with the sword. Those papers.
Oh.
He looks at you and says, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way.
The easy way is me being burned. Doesn't feel particularly easy for me.
The easiest way is you coming with me and standing trial. If you prove you're innocent, then you shall be set free. The hard way is you refusing to come.
How do I prove my innocence?
You will stand trial.
I mean, Ava knows that, or Ava thinks to know. Let's say it like that. That usually your innocence is proven by actually being burned to death. So that's not really something that she is like terribly happy about.
He looks at you, and there's nervousness in him. Are you coming with me or not? Answer now.
Is there any kind of sign from the individual that Ava is kind of like occupying at the moment, or at least she thinks, like former life or something? Is there any kind of hint as to, yeah, it's better to run or it's better to come along?
There's a feeling of inner strength, of pride, of purpose. tempts you to just
Yeah, that she'll come along.
just not. Let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
Just shut the door in his nose.
Oh. Okay, fine, bang. Like Ava does not want to, because the thing that she tried is like going back and watching time, and she doesn't want to interrupt basically uh the natural flow of things. So yeah, if that's the feeling that she gets, then the door is going to be closed in his face.
You hear him curse. There's a lot more noise around, but just it goes to the back of your mind. You start crying. You have a feeling of sadness, of loss, of regret, but also a feeling of happiness, a feeling of fulfilled purpose. You look at the papers scattered around the floor and on the table, and even though you hear loud thumps in the walls and the door, sounds of weapons, people shouting, people cursing, you hear people yelling, "Burn the witch, burn her house, burn her down." You see people piling out, not piling, Jesus, gathering outside. You see guards basically barring that window, hammering planks into, basically barring it down. Can't remember the word for it. Planking it, whatever. You go to the desk again. You write something. You finish what you have to write. You gather all your papers in a neat stack. And you see yourself, you find yourself making the sign of the cross on them, muttering something in a language you can't understand. There's the sound of something burning. There's the smell of something burning. The papers in your hand, though, without having any visible sort of flame to them, as you finish this whole ritual, turn to ash. You put up your sleeve, and on your forearm you see a black cat tattooed on it. You give that little drawing, that weird drawing, that's a strange drawing, you give it a kiss, and it gets warmer, hotter. There's less air to breathe. It's harder and harder to breathe. It's getting hotter and hotter. The heat is becoming uncomfortable, insufferable. The walls around you catch fire. There's this thick black smoke. You feel yourself yanked out of your body. Next thing you know, there's a pile of ash. You wake up in the middle of a burned house, of a pile of ash. The desk, somehow, even though blackened by smoke and charred, still stands. You see a street urchin approach, come really fast during the night. And from that desk, as they wave their hand above that desk, some of the ashes get up, move up, form a little pile on their own. That ash pile turns itself back into the stack of papers you so neatly arranged. That street urchin grabs them and runs off. You feel your eyes close. You feel a pressure on your chest. You feel warm, and you wake up in your bed, in the chantry, in your room. Your wet in sweat. You're short of breath. You probably sweated. You just look like you came out of the shower. Your room looks like it had a meeting with Hurricane Katrina. There's things lying all around. You actually don't wake up in your bed. You wake up on the floor with your sheet curled up in a ball in front of you. What do you do?
First thing Ava does is catch her breath and ever so slowly getting up. And is checking herself for any injuries because the last time she remembered being in a body, that body was about to be on fire or something. And then she'll slowly reach out for the parchment and like carefully.
As you touch the parchment, that parchment turns to ash.
Ah, well, that's crap. Ava definitely looks panicked for a moment because how is she going to translate something that she can't read anymore? Yeah. So actually, can she, like, in her dream she saw this street urchin, and he kind of made a gesture and turned the ash back into a sheet of paper. So she's gonna try and like mimic that.
Doesn't work.
No, of course not.
The,
But she's still
the,
trying.
the nope, doesn't work. It's dust. It's gone.
Then she'll
As you go to your desk, you almost trip on that ball that used to be your sheet. But you notice something strange about it.
Mm. Yeah, she'll pick it up.
Instead of your clean, nice white sheet, you get a sheet that's written on both sides in an impeccable hand. See, the first part is in Latin,
Mm-hmm.
second part is in Greek, the third part is in Arabic. You can read it. Some parts you can read it clearly, some parts you don't. But the letters are not overlapped like they used to be on the parchment. They're clear. It's an actual readable, big air quotes document, but there's a lot of it. Like it's not written very small, but you have a feeling that that parchment held a lot more information than a simple 70 by 30 paper would hold. And unless you want to add anything else, I believe we can call this a scene.
Yep, we definitely can. Thank you, Steve, for seeing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. This was another scene for Living World of Darkness, a Mage venue.